Hi, I'm Grace Lynch. Welcome to my channel. Um, had some sort of glitches yesterday, so this video is one day late. Trying to keep everything on Tuesday and Thursday, 10 minutes, like a nice structure to it. So today's video, though, is about choosing a direction. Now, um, the thinking behind this is why go to all the trouble of embarking on a journey of self-discovery, learning the things about my own consciousness that don't fit into a traditional understanding, not because I want to do such kinds of things, not because it's easy work, but because I find that living on a basis of an unexamined life, post brain rehab and everything that happened, I consistently find myself in situations in which I'm causing harm to people that I care about. I'm experiencing harm in ways that I'm not prepared for. And life on the other side of any of this, collapsed relationships, ability to maintain my routine, my schedule, the ways that I take care of myself, are so devastating to me because it knocks me down to such a basic level that it's impractical to leave that in play. The only way that I know to manage my life is to try to sort out the parts that don't work. And when I initially got back here and off the streets in 2016, and I finally had a home, started getting the right diagnoses and getting stable. Initially, everything was about outward control, and that was sort of my childhood want. But then I started to discover, as I learned the facts about my situation that I didn't know: TBI, aphasia, autism, synesthesia, and PTSD. That I had survival tools that had allowed me to govern myself for many, many years, but they were not very good at integrating with the outside world. I processed in a way that was very different than most people, and in ways that I had never explored. I didn't even know anything had happened to my brain for 27 years. So for me, I had gone along, I'd had a bad experience, I'd had a bad time. I didn't understand what had happened, but I had thought everything was basically the same. So when I found the neurologist, everything was transformed, and I realized that I had believed these things about my consciousness that weren't true. My brain had been changed, and I did not know how. So I started looking like, what other things don't I understand? Because when I would come back from, homelessness and adjusting my brain, I try to go back to the ways I remembered relating to the world and find out that the world doesn't process the way I do. It doesn't build meaning. And I had these expectations that anybody could be formally logical about direct experience, because that was the only way that I had. On the other side of the aphasia, the only tools that I had was formal logic from my mathematical training, and my instincts as a poet as well, and my English training. So it had to have formal logic integrity, and it also had to have personal integrity in terms of my own feelings, and can't lie to myself, and can't bullshit a bullshitter, as they say. So direct experience and formal logic were the only guides I had. Well, I've been operating like that for like 3 decades, and I try to engage with the outside world. The outside world doesn't do that, and so then I'm having this expectation that I didn't understand, because I did not understand how differently my mind had evolved. I did not understand how far I'd gone from the way of relating to the world as I'd known it back in the mid-'80s. So I started to realize I had a lot to learn about the situation, and essentially I wish that I could control other people and change them into proper thinking. I remember when I was formally diagnosed with autism, neuropsychologist. He told me at the end of a month of testing and stuff, he told me I was autistic. And my first thought was, so that's what's wrong with everybody else. Now, when I was looking at how I wanted to take care of my needs, and I had to, because when I didn't take care of my needs, I found my life going out of control. When it went out of control, that's when I came up with having become alcoholic and addict, and beyond my power of thought, I would go towards considering drinking or using. Not intentionally, it would just go that way. It was a thing that it's how it was. So the price of me not dealing with my recovery wasn't only a miserable life, it was going back to active using. And that, for me, was certain death, or worse than death. So I was heavily motivated to sort out the things that were going wrong. And if I wasn't going to live on a basis of controlling everybody else to make them like me, think properly, process properly, I was sure the world wanted correction. The only other choice that I could think of to make was to, instead of looking at how to change the world to my understanding, was to consider the possibility that the reason my life didn't work is because my life did work in a physical way. It didn't work in a cognitive way. It didn't work in the understanding way. My way of understanding my existence was not aligned with my way of actually being in my existence. I'd never done the work to match up the frameworks and reasoning that had emerged out of my childhood with the adult neurophysiology that I had grown into through puberty, and then also evolved into through trauma and the full emergence of my neurodiversity. So, once I realized my understanding was wrong, then I had to ask, well, what is the case? I had a sense of what needs and desires were, but no practical understanding. And one of the senses that came up for me is, since I was working with the nature of meaning and trying to rebuild my consciousness from whatever had happened to me, is that it wasn't enough to just find meaning. I needed to find meaning, reestablish a sense of meaning that gave me agency. It wasn't enough to have a context or a story or a general understanding about a phenomenon that I was dealing with in my life. It needed to be an understanding that spoke to where I was, what I was facing, and gave me a sense from my gut, my body, how to move forward. That would be a practical, useful understanding. I could have theoretical things galore, but they wouldn't save my ass when the rubber hits the road. So I realized that was a need. And I came to understand that needs are not like chocolate ice cream on a cake or rainbow sprinkles. Needs are like water needs to have oxygen molecules and hydrogen molecules. If water tries to be water without oxygen molecules, it's simply not water. Water needs oxygen to exist. When I think about my construction that way, needs and desires as a molecular composition property, then it suddenly doesn't matter whether I have the needs or wants that I want, whatever story I build, because I come to understand that these are innate to me and are going to govern my life whether I like it or not. I can reckon with them or not. And until I sort out what they are in my own way, at my own pace, and my own time, and figure out how to redesign my life and consciousness informed by those facts about myself, I can either get to know myself, or myself will continue to drive me while I'm trying to live inside the story that I wish was so, the magical story where I get to be right and control everything. So I could stay in the story, or I could learn about the rest of me by undergoing a process of beginning in a place that I don't know. I don't know the stuff that I'm going to find out, and I want to and I need to for the sake of peace of mind and living at peace with the world around me. This was the motivation. It was like, don't do it. Fine. If I don't want to get to know myself, my life can keep right on happening in the shit show that it was. Or I can get to know myself, which meant taking up the work. So choosing a direction, just let it off for that.